Alright, welcome to Young Turks. We're going to help a show. We're going to Monday show. Okay. I got a ton of announcements for you guys. Today's filled with... But hold, I'm getting to that in a minute. A little bit later in the program, two phenomenal stories about how incredibly dumb Donald Trump is. You're going to love them. Including our allies, how they have to prepare for the child president. And it sounds to me like, based on the quotes, that somebody at NATO is watching the Young Turks. So, hey, don't worry, NATO. Unlike Trump, I'm on your side. Trump might have secret tapes, which, that's not even among the two stories proving how dumb he is. But why would you do secret tapes in the Oval Office? Why would you be so stupid? Okay, so we will get to that a little bit later in the program, and if all that was not fun and exciting enough, in the second hour of the program, the Klan is back, and they're lighting up torches. I don't mean, the goofy guys in the basement pretending to be the Imperial Grand Wizard and stuff. I mean, like, the real resurgence and of significant racists looking to terrorize the rest of us. So that's in the second hour. So a hell of a show for you guys. Now, when I say you guys, I don't mean just our regular audience every day. I also mean a new audience. Ooh, what is that all about? I had two big announcements for you guys on Monday. Here comes one of them. Let's do the first one. Okay? Here we go. Here it comes. Washington. We got an announcement for you guys. We're back home. We started the Young Turks, over 15 years ago on Sirius Satellite Radio. We were there before Howard Stern. We were there after Howard Stern was also signed. I remember, I was going to say many people, but I think it was one listener who emailed and said, I came for Howard Stern and stayed for the Young Turks. Well, don't cry for me, Sirius XM. We're back. So today, first show on Sirius XM in many years now. Jesus and Lord mercy. It's been a long time, about 7 years. So great to be back with Sirius XM. We're on Sirius XM Progress. If you are listening right now on Sirius, you know that. You're like, I'm on Progress. That's why I'm hearing you. It's channel 127. And we are on 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. So we're live, of course, on the website every single day on tytnetwork.com at 6 o'clock Eastern, 6 to 8 o'clock Eastern. And then Sirius is carrying the program just a little bit later. So if you got a Sirius XM set, channel 127, here come the Young Turks! And since we started with Sirius, like I said, literally in my living room. That's the famous story about the Young Turks. Famous. And me and Dave Cole and Ben Mankiewicz and Jesus, who's still with us, all four guys huddled around Michael Schur, huddled around one table that we had in my living room, and we bought a couple of mics and an ISDN equipment and beamed it over to New York, whatever beam means. And then we had our callers. Remember the steady callers, Jesus? Tim from Medford, Oregon. Adam from Colorado. Buddha. Whatever happened to Buddha? That was one of the great mysteries of our old show. Whatever happened to Buddha? Chris from Virginia. While we were on Sirius XM, back then just Sirius. And by the way, later on we were on XM, which was back then just XM. So back home in every way conceivable. Convinced me that the estate tax was BS. That in fact, it was the first time that Paris Hilton was being taxed. Conrad Hilton had already been taxed, but Paris Hilton hadn't done anything. I mean, these are the great fond memories I had of Sirius and what we thought was our brilliant audience. I thought they made great point after great point. Later, when we got enough data on our audience in the internet days, we found out, no, our audience is actually kind of brilliant. Over 80% of our audience has some college education, which is unbelievable. It's record smashing how smart you guys are. Here, the people who produce the show and host the show, not quite as much. At least you guys are smart. Um, anyway, that's an awful lot of folks with a lot of education. Because have I mentioned that we have about 80 million unique viewers a month? Not a big deal. Anyway, okay, Channel 127, we're back. Washington. And some of you folks from the old Sirius days, yes, I still have the same soundboard, as you can tell. And it's a great lineup, by the way, they got on Sirius XM's Progress channel. And you guys should all check it out, even when we're not on 6 to 9 a.m. Mark Thompson show. Not our Mark Thompson, but good Mark Thompson. There's two Mark Thompsons in the liberal world. Stephanie Miller's show. Hey, you want to talk about soundboard? Stephanie's got a soundboard. Okay, Tom Hartman, the professor. Brilliant guy. He's also convinced me of several different points that I often talk about on the show. Michelangelo Signorelli's show, fantastic show, 3 to 6 p.m. And then look at this, a new addition to Progress as well, Dean Obadala, another good friend, old friend. So that's a power line at the end of Young Turks, Washington. I think you guys got it. All right, check us out on Sirius if you got a Sirius set. And if you don't, hello, buy one. Okay. Now, but I'm only one exciting announcement in. You ready for the second one? Now, as you all know, we did a journalism drive right after Donald Trump was elected. We said, you guys, we got to build the best investigative reporting team in the country, hire some really skilled, young, aggressive, hungry reporters who are ready to do some investigative reporting, get out there. And we had this audacious goal of raising $2 million, and you guys did it. So we've hired 12 people, a dozen people already. I told you we're going to 13. I told you we're going to hire our next reporter if we got to 2 million. And I am ready to announce who that is. So, you always need a bugle call. Okay. It's Andrew Jones. Now, Andrew's a young reporter, so you might have seen his work, especially if you're a progressive and read some of these outlets. You don't have to be a progressive, of course. But it is incredible how much he's done so far already. He's worked at The Intercept, The Guardian, meaning these are places he's contributed, written at, been published at, Salon, SB Nation, he also does sports, MSNBC, Talking Points Memo, Raw Story, Ebony Magazine, Wall Street Journal, Alternate, and Fusion Network. So can't wait. I think that he's going to focus on politics, of course, culture, and like I said, a little bit of sports. He says he's quick to emphasize that he's from Brooklyn, not just New York. Okay, don't hold that against him. I have not yet determined whether he's a hipster. We're going to have our other investigative reporters look into that. Okay, so I want to welcome Andrew on board. Can't wait to have his contributions. By the way, he's also into music, and he has apparently performed in front of Public Enemy's Chuck D. Now, that's both musically awesome and politically awesome, and Talib Kweli. How did I do in pronouncing that name? Okay, so he joins Jordan Chariton, Nomiki Kans, Michael Tracy, Naomi LaChance, and now Andrew Jones. And we hope to break dozens of stories for you guys and deliver on what we promised you guys. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for making this drive possible and for allowing us to hire great young reporters like all the ones I just mentioned. And they've already done an amazing number of stories. And just last week, we had Naomi LaChance break the story about the rape culture and actually get footage of a confession, which was chilling. She did a public records request, got that as an exclusive. We had Jordan Chariton with the Flint 6 story of the 6 people who were wrongly arrested in a town hall in Flint, Michigan. I mean, that's just last week, and let alone all the other stories that they've broken. So I can't wait to see what Andrew is going to do, and all of our reporters, thanks to you guys. All right, God bless your heart, and Godspeed to the reporters. Let's move forward. Welcome, Andrew. Okay, now, speaking of media, Now, lately I've been telling you about how MSNBC has been basically replacing all of their progressive hosts. And I gave you a long list yesterday, over a dozen people who have been either removed from air, fired, or moved to lower time slots, taken off of prime time or taken off of Daily Show and put on the weekends. So, just as we're reporting on that, and they, at the same time, hiring hosts of new conservative and more mainstream establishment reporters and anchors, including George Will, announced last week. We now find out this week that one of their most highly rated hosts, Loris O'Donnell, might be on the chopping block. Now, this is an amazing story, and it really tells you all you need to know about corporate media. It's not just about MSNBC. So, let's tell you all about it. Huffington Post breaks the story. They say Loris O'Donnell, host of MSNBC's The Last Word, has just 4 weeks left in his contract, and the cable network does not appear to be interested in renewing his deal. 4 well-placed sources tell HuffPost that MSNBC has not been in contact with O'Donnell's team of representatives to negotiate a new deal. Now, I work briefly in cable news, and I know a ton of folks that are in cable news, and Huffington Post also talks about it. If they haven't reached out to you with only 4 weeks left in your contract, normally that would mean you're done. If they like you and they want to keep you, they don't want to lose you to another network, they will reach out real quick. 6 months before your contract ends, even earlier than that. So the fact that they have not reached out to him yet is a very, very bad sign for Loris O'Donnell staying at MSNBC. Now, there's a lot of new media focus on it, so let's hope that that maybe affects their decision and focuses them on the reality of how Loris is doing. So let me tell you about that. The Last Word is the cable network's second highest rated program, according to Nielsen figures, behind only The Rachel Maddow Show. Who would possibly fire their second highest rated host? That's crazy. On the other hand, when this purge began back in 2011, it started with Keith Olbermann, and he was their highest rated host. Now, there's 2 different purges that happened at MSNBC. One was the beginning of getting rid of some progressive hosts, some because they rocked the boat and challenged the establishment and maybe challenged the Democratic Party, and some personal issues, etc. Then the second wave is under Andy Lack. He was brought in recently to clean house, get rid of all the progressives, and make sure that MSNBC does as its corporate parent tells it to do. Don't rock the boat, support the status quo, and perhaps support this right-wing president. Now, after Olbermann, of course, then I left, and Martin Bashir, and Dylan Ratigan, and Ed Schultz, and the list goes on and on. Under Andy Lack, as I told you, dozens of progressives have been moved out, and you could watch our video from last week about that. In this case, Loris himself tweets this out, and normally if you're under contract negotiations, you don't want to provoke people publicly. So this tweet also means things are not going well, and it's clear evidence of that. But listen to what he said. He said, last night, this was a couple of days ago, Maddow was #1 rated show in all of cable TV, not just cable news. The Last Word was #2. That's, of course, Loris O'Donnell's show. Thanks for your support. We need it. Now, if your show comes in #2, I mean, I know that it's not over a quarter, it's not over a month, but on any given night, and you're beating Sean Hannity, and you come in at #2 in all of cable, ain't nobody talking about firing you unless they have a clear agenda. That they're willing to sacrifice ratings and even revenue for their network for a larger agenda. There is no other explanation. So, now I'll give you some of the possibilities here in their official statements, and you can see for yourself here. Look, and like I said, when Olbermann was let go, actually, come to think of it, there's been 3 purges at MSNBC. There was the original purge back when it was not pretending to be progressive, when it was largely a conservative network, but Phil Donahue was their #1 rated show right before the Iraq War, and he was against the Iraq War, so they got rid of him. They got rid of Ashley Banfield, Jesse Ventura, and then during the Olbermann era, #1 rated, he's gone. Me at 6, I don't know everybody's ratings, but at 6 o'clock, I had the highest ratings they ever had at 6 o'clock. They try to move me to the weekends because, as you guys might know if you follow the Young Turks, as I explained at the time, they said that that they were insiders and I had to start acting like it, which is unbelievable. It's like a speech out of a movie. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So that happened to me, and I know it for a fact. We saw the internal memos of them talking about Phil Donahue in the first purge, saying when all the other networks are waving the flag in time of war, we can't have Phil Donahue questioning the war, and hence he was removed. Now, in this third purge, like I said, it's led by Andy Lack, who was brought in by Comcast. Now, Andy Lack has been with NBC News before, and then he went to go work for some other organizations and now is back. And so Huffington Post explains, Andy Lack, the chairman of NBC News, is no fan of O'Donnell's program, sources say. Now, some say it's because he doesn't appreciate the liberal nature of The Last Word, but others say it's about the fact that O'Donnell rejected Lack's request to move his program from 10 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, look, that last possibility could be a small part of the equation. And I was in a situation, not at MSNBC, but at another media organization, where we were asked to move time slots, so we didn't, and then management held it against us. So that's fairly normal, and it happens. But if you love the program, and the program is going great, and it's got great ratings, and it's bringing great revenue, that is a small issue, not something that you don't continue somebody's contract over, that you basically remove them from air over. No way. And part of the reason they want to move him 10 to 6 is they want to move him to a lower time slot. And he's got in his contract that he can stay in prime time. And so he said no because it's fully within his rights. That's a tiny issue. The much larger issue is that Andy Lack is removing all of the liberals from MSNBC. Now, they can't get Rachel yet. She's in the middle of a contract. But if you take away every other progressive, and all you have is Rachel Maddow and Chris Hayes left, tick-tock, tick-tock. That's called culling the herd. Okay? Now, and by the way, look, I like Lawrence a lot. I know him a little bit, personally. And we need his voice on air at a time where we need everybody challenging Donald Trump. And don't take this the wrong way, but he's not like the world's most radical progressive, right? And I'm sure you can probably take that as a compliment. He's like, mainstream left, but good, solid. Trump's a bad guy, points it out, fights for a lot of progressive values. My point there is, he's not some sort of fire breather where you're like, oh my, wow, okay, I get it, man, that's too much, No, they're getting rid of all of the liberals, all of the progressives. Okay. But senior NBC News executive tells Huffington Post, no, not the case. He says about Lack, he is proud of and enthusiastic about all the work that's being done across all of MSNBC's primetime slate, including Lawrence's program. Yeah, that's why he's never, ever talked to Lawrence O'Donnell since he came back in 2015. Is that amazing? Yeah. Okay, you can put out any statements you want. And by the way, here, prove us wrong. Keep him on. You offer him a new contract. The proof's going to be in the pudding one way or another. If you don't renew his contract and he's off the air, you can put out all the pretty little corporate statements you like. We'll know exactly which direction you're going. Okay. Lack is said to dislike, this goes back to Huffington Post's reporting, Lack is said to dislike when people attribute his cable network's blockbuster ratings to Trump. He believes, according to multiple sources, that the high ratings are largely a product of his programming decisions. You really believe that? You can't possibly believe that. That's oh no! I replaced all the people who were, did interesting shows filled with perspective that were getting fairly high ratings, and then during the Trump rise, they were getting even higher and higher ratings. And I come in and I replace them with milquetoast who just do really boring standard programs. And because all of cable news is lit on fire by Donald Trump, that boat happens to rise a little bit, and then I go, oh, you see my genius move. See, when you bring in milquetoast and the guy has no opinion at all, and he just reads like the news actor that he is from the prompter and what our producers wrote for him, that's considered safe by our corporate parent, people love that. That's why the ratings are up. Hey, man, whatever gets you through the night. Now, it's not just that they're cleaning house of progressives. There might be another reason why Lawrence O'Donnell in particular is in trouble. They explain, if O'Donnell's contract is not renewed, the news would certainly be welcome to President Donald Trump, who has had a long-running feud with O'Donnell. Oh, okay, well, let's find out more. In 2011, O'Donnell called on NBC to fire Trump, then the host and executive producer of The Celebrity Apprentice, for pushing his racist and inaccurate birther conspiracy against President Barack Obama. In 2015, he also claimed that Trump was lying about his wealth. Trump threatened to sue O'Donnell for making false statements, but never followed through on his threat, which O'Donnell had predicted. By the way, Lawrence and I did the same thing, or at about the same time, but the president only watches cable news. And that's why it's important to have voices like Lawrence's on cable news. Now, of course, a lot of you watch online content, that's why you're watching this, but for the folks who are, in a different demographic, they only watch cable news. They don't know how to turn on their computers. And they vote too. And it's important to have people like Lawrence on the air talking to them. And he made the point, which I think to anyone who's ever researched Donald Trump is fairly obvious. He doesn't have $10 billion. He doesn't have anywhere near $10 billion. I don't think he's a billionaire. I actually think he owes the Russians a ton of money. Okay? So when Lawrence just pointed out, hey, I don't think he's as rich as he is, Trump, of course, was furious. Now, why would MSNBC care about that? I mean, they claimed for years that they were progressive, kind of. They lean forward. They don't go all the way forward. Don't get carried away. They just lean forward, right? Well, if your parent corporation would like to get mergers approved by this government with billions upon billions of dollars on the line, then you might care what Donald Trump thinks if you're Comcast. If you'd like to get rid of net neutrality and kill freedom on the internet, but provide those internet providers with billions of dollars in extra profits, then you wouldn't really want progressives on there, would you? And you wouldn't want to anger the president, would you? Those are very important government decisions that have tremendous impact on Comcast's bottom line. By the way, if you're a Comcast shareholder, did they discuss any of this with you? Did they say, hey, you know what? We're going to sacrifice MSNBC. We're going to take proven shows with proven ratings and proven revenue off the air, and so that we can get all the other deals approved. Did they have that conversation with you guys? Did you guys approve that if you're a shareholder of Comcast? It's an open and interesting question. So, now back to our friend, the senior NBC News executive, who says about lack, more amusing quotes, is he bringing in more voices from all over the political spectrum? Yes. Well, okay, thank you for that admission, but that was super obvious anyway. But that's to make better programming and more informed analysis. We don't just do things to appease people in power. We hold them accountable. When's the last time you saw NBC News holding anyone accountable? It's just a literal question. You remember, like, breaking news, Pentagon's full of liars. Now, it's not to say the Pentagon lies all the time, of course not, but you guys have billions of dollars. Did you ever do an investigation and challenge the Pentagon on all the civilian deaths? In the beginning when they say they're not civilians, and then later it turns out they were civilians. Did you even do a follow-up story? Have you taken all of your great reporters holding power to account and unleashed them on Trump or Obama or anyone? I mean, when I was there, they didn't like me going after Obama. Anybody who's in power, you got to appease them if you own a multi-billion-dollar corporation with lots of business in front of the federal government. And if you don't, you got to go. You got to go. Meanwhile, no. You brought in all these thick-necked conservatives to give informed analysis. Progressives who used to watch MSNBC, don't you want informed analysis from deeply conservative right-wingers? You know, they're a treasure trove of facts and reason and logic. Okay. And what are they thinking of replacing the last word with? Well, Huffington Post one last time explains, it's unclear who would replace O'Donnell if MSNBC declines to renew his contract. Multiple sources have told HuffPost that Brian Williams, whose program, The 11th Hour, is on MSNBC at 11 p.m. Eastern, has been eager to have an earlier start in the evening schedule. Brian Williams, in my experience, is a good guy, funny, smart guy. But on air, what he does is milquetoast. That's his whole point. I don't challenge anyone. I don't rock the boat. I read from the prompter. And the prompter is super safe. So steady as we go. If it's your boat, you don't want anyone rocking it. It's Comcast's boat. So if you're even rocking it a little bit, you gotta go. So it looks like they're going to head in a status quo, pro-establishment, pro-Trump direction. I mean, if you'd like to destroy the good ratings you have under Trump for holding him accountable even this much for a tiny, tiny portion of your programming schedule, well, you can kiss those goodbye. Is there any progressive who actually thinks MSNBC is a progressive channel anymore? Look, again, I should celebrate this because they're just handing their entire audience to us. But as a person who cares about this country, I want as many voices on our side to be all over media, TV, online. Does radio still exist? Yes, it does! We're on Sirius XM right now. So, all those voices in all those places. But right now, unfortunately, that it does not appear to be where Comcast headed. But, hey, maybe we're wrong. So let's ask you guys. There's a poll we've got, tytnetwork.com/MSNBC. And we're asking you guys, what do you think? Do you think MSNBC is progressive? It's a really, really simple question. Right now, I think the polling has it at 93-7. No, look at this. The yeses are closing in. 90% no, 10% yes. But you guys vote and let us know if you think maybe that's as good as it gets. I mean, with all the Joe Scarborough in the morning for about 18 hours and the other incredibly standard news actors that they have on, if you think that's a progressive place to watch, then have at it, Hoss. Go get them. MSNBC, my last word, can't wait for you to prove me wrong. And then you can go out and say, these guys online, they don't know what they're talking about. Young Turks always attacking us. It's not true. We kept Lawrence O'Donnell. We paid him even more money. We decided to keep him for 3, 5, no, 10 years. Bet you won't. Your call, not mine. Young Turks. I got a bunch of things to go through. The only Republican would have ever voted for Bernie, he would have done worse than Hillary Clinton.
They're so miserable. All right, I'm going to stop myself before I say things that are offensive.
If I ran for office, and that would be a trippy day, right? I'd break even more rules than Trump. If I had all the money in the world, I would enjoy that. We have a great show for you. Steve's answer is C. Dave's is A, and the correct answer is, of course, B. You guys are the worst. Here's the story, and it's not funny. Steve is over too. It seems just comically unfair and ridiculous. The Democratic Party just sucks right now. It just sucks because it doesn't know what it stands for. We should call it right. Hey, Jen, what's up?
And did they change the icon for Vine? I can't find it.
Cable news, if you're going to look at cable news in particular, hasn't been able to provide the information that human beings are craving in 2017. And they continue to speak to their audiences as if they don't have minds that are expanding because of things like the internet. And that's why their average viewership is around the mid-60s average. The viewers that watch the Young Turks, they're not just viewers. They're not passive viewers. They're engaged viewers. They are committed viewers. They're actually investors. They've invested in me. What I find so refreshing about the Young Turks is that it's the first place I've ever worked where I am supported for asking questions. No one's saying, don't go down that path, it's too risky. We don't want to piss off these people. We don't want to lose access to this. You're going to rile up those who are in power. You're going to ruffle some feathers. But that's when you know your journalism has impact. I'm not there to say this is right or this is wrong or even to make a political statement. I just want to ask questions. And Young Turks has been incredibly supportive in my mission to ask questions from those who are in power and who are failing. My particular beat, I think, is politics and institutions. It's my duty to explore areas where we are in crisis, whether that is an institution like the Democratic Party failing to represent the interests of working people and poor people and young people and people of color, then I'm going to look into why that institution failed. And people are going to get pissed off. This is a really unique moment. We are in a constitutional crisis. Our First Amendment rights are under attack as people who want to share opinions, ask questions, go out in the street and organize, or question the government. This is an important moment for journalism. And I could not have found a better place that is more supportive of asking these questions and going out there and pushing the limits and pushing it so far that those in power have to respond.
I've got some tweets for you guys. If you want to talk to us throughout the show, this is now new school. Send it through the tweeter machine. Use the hashtag TYT Live. So Joseph L. Casabu. Okay, sorry, Joseph, for what I did to your last name there. Says TYT's back on radio. Welcome home. Thank you, Joseph. Joanna J.M. Hicks says, why so serious? Congrats. Thank you, Joanna. Laura Medit says, sweet, I've been loving following Andrew Jones for months. Happy to have him at TYT. And so, we hire all these young reporters. I realize what a slacker I must have been. I mean, I don't know, by the age of 13, they've already worked for 78 news organizations. I don't know how they did that. So it's great that you were following them. I love that. All right. Christina Oaks says, Lawrence is the last remotely progressive voice on MSNBC. They're replacing them all with conservative hack jobs. And Tom Sherry says MSNBC doesn't care about ratings. They care about doing pro-corporate, pro-war propaganda. They don't need high ratings. Well, so an interesting point there by Tom, which is not unusual, by the way. It's happened many, many times in the past, that sometimes giant corporations buy certain things for marketing purposes rather than actually making revenue off of that thing. You know that Rupert Murdoch loses over $50 million a year every single year on the New York Post? If you just care about business, you need to shut it down a long time ago. He probably views that as a marketing cost for the rest of his empire and for his political point of view. That's interesting. And conservatives have a lot of money to throw away. Okay, let's move forward. So, Donald Trump fires James Comey, the head of the FBI. That seems like a drastic and outrageous move, given that Comey was investigating for his connections to Russia and how they might have colluded, especially during the elections. So it's a Nixonian move. Let's see if it affected his polling at all, his ratings, and most especially Trump voters. Did they get swayed by this at all? Will anything sway them? All right. First of all, his decision to fire Comey, overall unpopular. Let's put it this way, 38% disapprove of his decision to fire Comey, 32% have no opinion, and 29% approve. So you can say only 29% approve of his decision to fire Comey. That's how a lot of the press has been putting it. But that's a big number there at no opinion, about a third of the country. So the jury's still a little bit out on that, but right now, overall, unpopular. Okay, how about among Democrats? Now, you're not going to be surprised by this. 66% disapprove. I'm surprised that that number is not larger. 24% just don't have much of an opinion. And only 9% of Democrats approve of firing James Comey. Now, I bring that to you only because Donald Trump thought that it would make Democrats happy. He thought it was a win-win. That's because he's not very bright and doesn't understand how politics works. If you fire the guy investigating you, the opposite party is not happy about that, no matter what history they might have had with that particular investigator. Now we move to the Republicans, and they're mixed numbers as well. 58% approve of his decision, 33% have no opinion, and only 8% disapprove of the decision. So, now, could be higher, but overall, most of the Republicans still sticking with him, only 8% disapprove of the move overall. So, has it moved his overall job ratings? And the answer is no. Number is still at 39% approval for Donald Trump. Pretty much where he's been all along. NBC News Wall Street Journal is the one conducting this poll. And don't get me wrong, the overall numbers for Trump is disastrous. He's at 52% negative and only 38% positive. For any president, those are terrible numbers. And for a president that is just basically beginning his first term, just past 100 days now, those are awful numbers. Usually the presidents are in the 60s or even higher at this point in their first term. He's not. He's the opposite. But it is not moving. You can't move those stubborn Trump voters. They're like, I don't care what he does, man. There's somebody investigating him because he might be a crook, and he fired him like a crook. I don't care. I don't care. He grabbed women. He did this. He doesn't know who the leader of North Korea is. He just found out healthcare is complicated. I don't care. So that's basically what they're telling you. In fact, more depressing details about that. First of all, they say 46% of Americans, including 74% of Democrats, say they agree with the statement that Trump fired Comey to slow down the FBI investigation of Russia's involvement in the 2016 election. Now, it should be way higher than 46%, but everybody's not paying attention to every detail. It should be higher than 74% of Democrats. But let's find out what happened with the Republicans. That's the interesting part. They say that's compared with 38% of respondents, including nearly 2/3 of Republicans, who agree that the firing was due to how Comey handled the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails. That's preposterous! 2/3 of Republicans have gotten themselves to believe that all of a sudden Donald Trump cares about the well-being of Hillary Clinton. James Comey was so unfair to Hillary Clinton. The way that he went back and forth, and did that announcement right before the election, which handed me the election, among many other factors. Okay. I can't believe what he did to Hillary Clinton, even though I was chanting, lock her up. That's why Comey was fired. How could you possibly believe that? Okay, but even if you're gullible enough to believe that, well, the White House told you it's not the case. First, let's go to the Deputy White House Press Secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, where she admitted it was because of the Russian investigation. Listen.
The president has encouraged this investigation into Russia. He wants to see it reach its completion sooner rather than later. How has he encouraged it if he just fired the man who was overseeing the Russian investigation?
The point is, we want this to come to its conclusion. We want it to come to its conclusion with integrity. And we think that we've actually, by removing Director Comey, taken steps to make that happen.
By removing Director Comey, we have taken steps to end the Russian investigation. In other words, we did not fire him because of the Hillary Clinton emails. We fired him to end the Russian investigation. Now, wow, that's a spokesperson. Maybe they misspoke. Well, let's go to the president himself. Listen to what he says.
When I decided to just do it, I said to myself, I said, this Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story. It's an excuse by the Democrats for having lost an election.
I says to myself, this Russia thing's a made-up thing, so let me fire Comey to end the Russian investigation. He just said it! Nope, 2/3 Republicans. Nope, it was a Hillary Clinton thing. Hillary Clinton, not to end the Russian investigation. I don't care about facts. I live in an alternate universe where facts are liberal and hate me and try to take my guns away. Okay. I don't know how to reach folks. And, a lot of them are old and set in their ways, and they're bunkered in wherever they are. They probably don't know how to turn on a computer. They've never seen one in their lives. So I have trouble reaching them. But turn on your TV. That was on NBC where he said, yeah, I did it because of the Russian investigation. Nope. If he says he did it because of Hillary Clinton, he did it because of Hillary Clinton. But he doesn't even say that anymore. I don't care. I'm going to make excuses for him. All right. I guess a little bit of good news to end this. Asked if they prefer Congress or an independent commission or a special prosecutor to investigate Russia's involvement, just 15% of all Americans pick Congress, while 78% support an independent commission or a special prosecutor. Well, that's good, because that takes the distrust that progressives and conservatives have of Congress and go, you think those guys are going to be honest enough to investigate the president? No way. They're way too corrupt. So let's have an independent prosecutor do it. Great. Deal. Can't wait. Maybe they should call up Sandra Day O'Connor. Just throwing it out there. She's a Republican, so I can't imagine Republicans would object. Former Supreme Court Justice should be, really rock solid in terms of integrity. Humble suggestion. Okay. So let's move forward. So Donald Trump is about to do a visit to Europe at the end of May, and he's going to go talk to the 28 nations that are in NATO. This is our most important alliance, and so the folks at NATO are preparing for the U.S. president as they would with any president. But their preparations are a little bit different for this president because they realize, as they explain to Foreign Policy, that he has a, quote, notoriously short attention span. In other words, the president is a child and can only concentrate for short periods of time. So they are doing all their briefings and all their preparations based on the idea that the president of the United States of America, the most powerful man on earth, can't concentrate, and they have to also make it entertaining. So let me give you more quotes. Staff is working to tailor the meeting to ensure no speaker will go over a 4-minute time during discussion. The U.S. president can't concentrate for over 4 minutes on policy. And, by the way, is it even policy? Well, let's go to the next quote. They explain they're looking for ways to make the state affair more engaging. They got to put on a show for him. Maybe they're going to bring in a clown and bring in balloons. Hey, Donnie, look over here. It's so exciting. Oh, look at this, Donnie. Come on, Donnie. Oh, come over here. Now, Here's where we have our missiles. Here's where we can be invaded. Have we entertained you enough? Ah! Oh, let's bring in Omarosa. Let's bring in The Rock. Let's make this thing entertaining so that idiot American president can concentrate for 4 goddamn minutes on world security. You know how I call him a child all the time? I just did it earlier. Well, it turns out I'm not alone. Unnamed source says from NATO, it's kind of ridiculous how they're preparing to deal with Trump. It's like they're preparing to deal with a child. Exactly! Someone with a short attention span and mood who has no knowledge of NATO, no interest in in-depth policy issues, nothing. They're freaking out. The whole world should be freaking out. I have 1,000 examples, but the one that I can't get past is that we're in the middle of a potential devastating military conflict with North Korea. And the president did not know who the leader of North Korea was. Not only did he keep referring to him as this gentleman, he thought it was the same guy who was in charge while Obama and Bill Clinton were president. That's 3 different guys. And he didn't know it. He thought, oh, well, Clinton couldn't handle this gentleman. Neither could Barack Obama. My God, you sent an aircraft carrier over to North Korea. You threatened a devastating war with them. You didn't take 1 minute to find out who the leader of North Korea is. Of course our allies are worried. Of course they got to put on a show like he's a freaking child. He's Joffrey Baratheon. That's who he is. I don't have to find out what's going on. Huh? Russia told me that I'm not supposed to like NATO. I don't know. Hey, why haven't you paid your bills, NATO? That's what Vladimir told me to tell you. Maybe they were watching the Young Turks a little bit. One senior NATO official said that they are, quote, bracing for impact. I told you to brace for impact, and here we are. Okay. Now, another story about what an idiot our president is. Next one. Politico has a very interesting story about how to get Donald Trump's attention and how to get people fired from the White House. Okay, so they explain. White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus issued a stern warning at a recent senior staff meeting. Quit trying to secretly slip stuff to President Donald Trump. Now, why? Well, they're going to give you examples. First one is, they explained, just days earlier, Katie McFarland, the Deputy National Security Advisor, had given Trump a printout of 2 Time magazine covers. One, supposedly from the 1970s, warned of a coming ice age, the other from 2008, about surviving global warming, according to 4 White House officials familiar with the matter. Now, this is already bad enough. She's presenting it as if it's like 2 different covers recently, one's theoretically from the 1970s, the other was from 2008, and of course, predictably, Donald Trump loses it. But it actually gets worse. So Politico further reports, Trump quickly got lathered up about the media's hypocrisy, but there was a problem. The 1970s cover was fake, part of an internet hoax that circulated for years. Staff chased down the truth and intervened before Trump tweeted or talked publicly about it. So let's break that down. Number one, well, what does a clown do? He surrounds himself with other clowns. So he hired Katie McFarland because he saw her on TV, he saw her on Fox News. And she, like everyone else on Fox News, doesn't understand the difference between real news and fake news. She's like, oh, I saw something on the internets. It came across the interwebs, and so I showed it to Donald Trump. No, you schmuck. You're part of the national security apparatus. You're the Deputy National Security Advisor. You might want to ask somebody. You have a staff that is hundreds, thousands of people. Ask somebody. No. So that clown gives it to Donald Trump, who's a further clown. My favorite part of that story is they have to rush in and basically tackle him before he tweets about it. So like, oh no, the child has got the wrong information. He's going to go start some sort of new controversy on Twitter. Somebody rush in to save us from that schmuck who's the president before he goes on tweeting, before checking with anything else. Okay. Now, further embarrassing details here. Aides sometimes slip him stories to press their advantage on policy. Other times they do so to gain an edge in the seemingly endless Game of Thrones inside the West Wing. Now, the one upside of the story is it turns out the president does in fact read. Some had questions about that. Okay, so that's why, and he has a bit of an open door policy. Now, normally it's very careful what you put on the president's desk. It's usually vetted. It's gone through intelligence. It's gone through all this stuff. Not in the Trump era. People slip into his office. They put an article in there. He's like, oh, what is this? Oh, my God, I'm so upset. What happened? Oh, somebody hand me the tweeter. Right? So people know that. And they're like, well, since the something in front of him that's to my advantage and to the disadvantage of my enemies within the White House. Any smart manager would see through that trick in a second. But that's not who he is. He's a pathetic little child. Okay, so they explain the consequences can be tremendous. According to half a dozen White House officials. Those aren't liberals. Every one of those White House officials is conservative. And others with direct interactions with the president. A news story tucked into Trump's hands at the right moment can torpedo an appointment or redirect the president's entire agenda. For example, here, Elliot Abrams was supposed to be number 2 at the State Department. Rex Tillerson wanted him. And somebody put an article in front of Donald Trump that Elliot Abrams in an op-ed had attacked him during the campaign. He's like, nope, Elliot Abrams, gone. So if you don't want Elliot Abrams, you want your guy in there, all you got to do is stick something in front of him. Oh, what? Elliot didn't like me. Me no like Elliot. Somebody hand me Twitter machine. Me no like Elliot. So he single-handedly ended Elliot Abrams' chances at the State Department. Okay. So then there's this story about this conspiracy theorist online, Charles C. Johnson. He's done many absurd things. He's gotten kicked off Twitter. And he's even on rare occasion apologized for the things that he made up, which is a significant number of stuff. It doesn't matter. All you need is any article. Donald Trump reads whatever's in the prompter, right? Whatever's in front of him, he reads and doesn't question because he doesn't have the mental capacity to question it. So they explain that no matter that Johnson had been permanently banned from Twitter for harassment or that he offered no concrete evidence or that he had lobbed false accusations in the past and recanted them, Trump read the article and began asking staff about Walsh. Now, in this case, what they're talking about is a woman named Katie Walsh, who was the deputy chief of staff and worked with Reince Priebus for a long time, who was the chief of staff. And Johnson had written an article about how she was one of the leakers inside the Trump administration. So somebody conveniently takes this article that's got no evidence at all, no facts behind it, and puts it in front of the idiot in chief. And he's like, doesn't check who wrote it, what's their credibility or anything like that. Is it coming from my intelligence officials? Is it coming from a blog? Is it coming from the New York Times? Where is it coming from? It's like, Katie Walsh, me no like her. So Katie Walsh out at the White House. She's got to go be a lobbyist and get rich. Anyway, but she's now at a Trump-friendly think tank. That's where it's the farm they sent you when the child gets upset with you. But she's out. She's out of the White House, gone, because somebody put a nonsense article in front of Donald Trump. This is how he makes decisions. God help us all. Okay. But as a smear of one of Priebus' closest allies, Walsh was his chief of staff at the Republican National Committee, vaulted from an obscure web posting to a topic of heated conversation in the West Wing, setting off many internal investigations into who had backstabbed Walsh. Now, that's part of the reason why Reince Priebus is now going around going, stop putting things in front of Donald Trump. He is too stupid to understand the source, so run it by me so that I can double check before he fires more people or tweets things that aren't remotely true. Okay. White House and former campaign aides have tried to make sure Trump's media diet includes regular doses of praise and positive stories to keep his mood up, a tactic honed by staff during the campaign to keep him from tweeting angrily. Good, Donnie. Good, Donnie. Look, Donnie. Look, they like you. This guy, I don't know what is Bob Johnson, Bob Smith. Bob Smith likes you. Ooh, me like Bob Smith. Me in a good mood. I don't need to tweet now. Oh, that's so sad. That's so sad. I almost wish I hadn't heard it. Even though I can't stand the guy. It's pathetic. It's so ironic because he ends the tweets with things like sad baby. That's exactly what he is. A sad little baby that has to be cheered up every once in a while. Did they also change your diaper while they were at it, Donnie? There's universal agreement among Trump advisors on this. The best way to focus the president's attention on any story is to tell him about it personally, even if it is one of the papers he's already thumbed through. But officials say it's a high-risk, high-reward proposition because Trump's frustrations at bad stories can easily boomerang against those delivering him the news. If you're an effective manager, if somebody comes and gives you the news, you name it, revenue is down, your ratings are down, your polling is down, whatever it is. What kind of a moron thinks he's the one that caused it? No, he's the one who delivered the news. He's doing you a favor by giving you information, and then you could react to that information anyway, maybe to fix your revenue, ratings, polls, whatever it is. But Trump has this much mental capacity. So he's like, Bob gave me news. Me not like news, me not like Bob. What an utter fool. Most powerful guy on earth. God help us all. Okay, finally, another story from GQ explains how even people who were his former staffers, like Corey Lewandowski, who used to be his campaign manager, not in the White House, can use television to influence him, because it's not just the stuff that's put in front of him. Of course, he watches cable news all day, and mainly Fox News. So, according to a big profile of Lewandowski in GQ, the one-time Trump campaign chief told medical AI startup Flow Health that he could help them get Veterans Administration Secretary David Shulkin fired by bad-mouthing him on Hannity's Fox News program. Now, this story has lots of ups and downs, which are funny. This company wants to get this guy fired because he's actually doing his job. Within the Trump administration, that's a minor miracle, and actually holding them accountable for the mistakes that they've made. They're like, so let's just hire a lobbyist to get him fired. Problem solved. We don't have to fix our internal problems. No, we use crony capitalism and political lobbying to just take out the guy who's causing us a problem. So who do we go to? We go to Lewandowski. Lewandowski's like, it's easy. You just go on Hannity's program. You know he watches Hannity. And you say something bad about him, he'll be fired tomorrow, because the president is an utter idiot. He'll be influenced with no problem at all. Now, as it turned out, Lewandowski is also incompetent. So he went on Hannity's program. I don't know if he decided not to do it or if he forgot to do it, but he didn't do it. So then the company fires Lewandowski's firm because they're like, well, you told us you could get the guy fired, and then you didn't. This is what corruption is about, and you didn't deliver on your corruption, so they let Lewandowski's firm go. Now, Lewandowski also botched a number of other things, and now is no longer with that firm. But as they explain here in GQ, Lewandowski proposed using an upcoming appearance on Hannity's Fox News program to brand Shulkin, quote, bad hombre who needed to be fired. After seeing him trash his VA secretary on his favorite cable news channel, Lewandowski said Trump would almost certainly call him to find out what was up. See, they know how they can manipulate him. They all know that he's stupid. They think, look, you put something in front of him, whether it's on cable news or in the papers, and it doesn't matter what paper, it just has to be printed out and put in front of him. Then he's going to ask you what to do, and that's when you manipulate him, because even inside the building, they all know how painfully stupid the president is. God help us all. Young Turks.
I just closed my Wells Fargo account. I just divested funds from Wells Fargo. I definitely urge you to do the same. Please come divest. Divest today from all the big banks. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank, Chase. There are so many others. Do it. We can make a difference. Water is life.
The establishment media sucks because they have many more resources than TYT, for example, yet they're lazy. So they choose to talk about the same issue that's just being regurgitated in Washington over and over again with their 800-person panel, as opposed to maybe sending a few reporters out to Flint, Michigan, or to Wisconsin to talk to union workers, or to Alabama to talk about the minimum wage fight down there. They have so many resources, yet they spend those resources on talking about what the latest gossip is in Washington and Hillary Clinton's haircut. I don't care about Hillary Clinton's haircut. I care about the policies that are being implemented that are going to affect the American people on a daily basis. The corporate media doesn't care about that. They care about their next profit, and they care about looking good on camera and then chatting with their fellow colleagues afterwards over drinks in Washington and New York. For me, the three biggest issues in the country are, one, campaign finance reform, because that affects every other issue; two, income inequality, which is a byproduct of corruption and campaign finance issues; and thirdly, the criminal justice system reform. The mainstream press doesn't talk about that at all. You have to get that from articles online from The Nation or Vox, or you have to watch documentaries about that. That's part of what I want to do here at TYT, is shed light on issues that the press isn't going to. Go to the middle of the country, talk to people. That's what the mainstream press should be doing, and that's what TYT is doing.
Hey, Jen, what's up? Hey, my VCR keeps flashing 12, but it's not even midnight. Go.
Robbie Canal, he calls his work urban beautification.
I didn't go out to be a street artist or to make posters. I was just compelled to. I was mad enough it didn't matter. It was like a form of minor civil disobedience even. You know, like, fuck you. How about your higher ground? Power operates to self-replicate itself to maintain the status quo so it stays in power. When you go to do something like this to express yourself in public about an issue you care about, make sure you pick the bigger weapon. And the weapon is knowledge. The one thing about street art, it's not like I put up my posters to change anybody's mind about anything. The difference between propaganda and the kind of art I do is propaganda is telling people what to think. The way the art works, where the art works, is between the time you see it and the time you figure it out for yourself. I'm an optimist. I might have made a lot of ugly things about a lot of ugly people, but it's out of love. Not for them. We got a bunch of great tweets, so let me read them to you as quickly as I can. Jay writes in, if Trump went through a trailer park with a shotgun shooting people on Facebook Live, would that hurt him with his base? Well, remember, he said I could shoot somebody on 5th Avenue and they'd still support me. And so far, he's been proven right about that. Maybe the only thing he's been right about. Okay, Mr. Charles says Republicans believe he fired Comey because he didn't prosecute Clinton. They probably, a large portion of them probably are under that misimpression. But technically, they said, the Trump administration said they fired him because of the things he said about the Hillary Clinton that were derogatory when he shouldn't have given a press conference about her at all. So that's what Rosenstein's memo was, that theoretically precipitated the firing. And in fact, even Roger Stone said, yeah, it was because of all the things he did wrong to Hillary Clinton. Okay, Gabby Merida writes in, no, actually, let me go to Mike first. If the investigation is as far along as I hope it is, Trump may just stay abroad and then seek asylum in Russia. Could you imagine if Trump runs to Russia to seek asylum? Whisper of a dream. Gabby Marina says, if Trump is Joffrey and his administration is Game of Thrones, does that mean 2020 will be a political red wedding, or maybe 2018? The answer is yes. I hope to be playing the Reigns of Castamere on election night on 2018. The Justice Democrats send their regards. Oh, you want to talk about whispering of a dream? JusticeDemocrats.com. Okay, I Am Sock says, just so you know that all these slipped-in memos and stories are printed in at least 48-point font. Probably true. Kicking It says, wow, Hillary lost to this guy. You know, every once in a while that thought pops into my head. And then I think, these establishment Democrats want to run more races against Republicans? Hell no. Step aside, Butch. JusticeDemocrats.com. And finally, Marie Jacobson says, and this man has access to nuclear bombs. That's why I keep saying, God help us all, even though I don't believe in God. Okay, let's move forward. More shenanigans from Trump. Okay. Recently, Donald Trump tweeted something he shouldn't. That's the beginning of about half a dozen stories a day. But this was about James Comey. Now, remember, this is the guy that he fired because he was investigating him. Head of the FBI, looking into Russian connections with Donald Trump. He fires him, says I fired him because of the Russian connections to Lester Holt on NBC. It's an incredibly stupid thing to say. Opens him up to obstruction of justice charges. Not satisfied with that, he sends this tweet, which opens him up to witness tampering, plus other problems. He says, James Comey better hope that there are no tapes, in quotes, of our conversations before he starts leaking to the press. Now, first of all, James Comey could testify and has been asked to testify about your connections to Russia in that active investigation. So you might not want to say that publicly. That could be legally problematic. Second of all, what? You got tapes? Now, if you don't have the tapes, why are you bluffing and saying outrageous, weird things? That's only going to get you in trouble. If you do have the tapes, boy, they're going to get you in much worse trouble. Oh my God. So is Trump really, again, I'm sorry to repeat it, but it's true, this stupid that he would tape his conversations in the White House that have to be riddled with 1,000 different problems? Oh, please tell me he taped them. Please, please. And it turns out, well, when you look into it, and the Washington Post did, he has a long history of taping his conversations. Yes. Okay. Now, when they asked Sean Spicer, by the way, hey, does he have tapes? Spicer said the president has nothing further to add on that. And he said it 3 times. He refused to say whether the White House still has an active taping system. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, he got himself. Oh, you schmuck, what are you doing taping conversations you're having? There's no way there isn't like 1,000 terrible things on those tapes. You think this guy's savvy enough to cover up his crimes, etc.? Oh, you know that he's reaching out to Mike Flynn right now? And they have to keep telling him, sir, Mike Flynn is part of the Russian investigation. They're looking into his illegal activities. You cannot call one of those witnesses. You can't call Mike Flynn. He's like, why not? I'm the president. Mike Flynn's a good friend of mine. I just want to talk to him. Why can't I call him? They're like, no, you can't call Mike Flynn. That would be illegal. You know why he wants to call Mike Flynn? Because Mike Flynn knows. He wants to make him an offer. Please say it on tape. Let him call Mike Flynn. Let him call him. Okay. Throughout Donald Trump's business career, now this goes to the explanation of how often he's taped, some executives who came to work for him were taken aside by colleagues and warned to assume that their discussions with the boss were being recorded. John O'Donnell, who used to run Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino, said there was never any sense with Donald of the phone being used for private conversations. He said talking on the phone with Donald was a public experience. You never knew who else was listening. Oh, all the Trump tapes. And then when they get rid of them, because you know the knucklehead said something stupid on the tapes, then that's going to be a different crime. Almost exactly like what Richard Nixon did. There's some chance he doesn't know who Richard Nixon is. No, look, of course he knows Nixon. I say of course. I don't know if he knows anything, right? But does he know that Watergate became a huge issue because of the tapes, and that you shouldn't do the tapes because it'll only get you in further trouble? He doesn't know who the leader of North Korea is. He didn't know healthcare was complicated. He doesn't know anything. So the schmuck probably taped inside the Oval Office and then said it publicly. God, oh my God. This is where his stupidity helps us. Anyway, more background. Trump's fascination with recording his conversations reaches back to the early years of his real estate career when he installed in his 26-story office in Trump Tower a system for surreptitiously tape recording business meetings, according to an eyewitness account in Harry Hurt's 1993 biography, Lost Tycoon. And BuzzFeed News reports that last year that Trump listened in on calls made by his staff at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. So he's been taping for a long, long time. Then during the campaign, he was having a conversation with the Washington Post, and here's what happened. Donald Trump says, by the way, you don't mind that I'm taping this conversation, Washington Post. No, we're taping it as well. That's fine. Trump, been taping inside the White House. Oh, can't wait. Can't wait to hear those tapes. Okay. Last spring, when two Post reporters visited Trump in his office for another interview, Trump, in the middle of telling a story about how he demolished the Manhattan landmark that had stood where Trump Tower is now, asked his guests if they would like something to drink. In the same quiet voice in which he'd been conducting the interview, Trump said, "Okay, 2 waters and a Coke." The interview resumed, and less than a minute later, a secretary walked in with the drinks. No one other than the reporters and Trump had been in the office, and Trump never signaled a drink request to anyone outside the office. And it goes on, and they have all these descriptions of the secretaries knowing exactly what was being said, let alone other people that knew conversations that they thought were private with Donald Trump. He's been taping for decades. Now, finally, Washington Post explains, a post-Watergate reform measure, the Presidential Records Act of 1978, requires presidents to preserve and archive recordings made in the White House. So, you can't get rid of the tapes. If you do, that's a different crime. Na 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 na. You know that thing about if you never learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it? Well, this is the chickens coming home to roost. Donald Trump has never done any research, has never done any homework, spoiled little brat, never bothered to learn anything about history. So it appears he just repeated it. Can't wait. Okay. I will tell you another story real quick because it's going to relate to one of the stories that Anna's going to tell you about the rise of the new Klan in the so-called second hour. That's not the right one. The one with the E is the right one. Sad day. Anyways, we're moving on. Okay. So, unfortunately, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center and anyone else who's tracking it, hate crimes are on the rise during Trump era. They explain that according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Independent does, 1,051 hate crimes were reported in the month following Donald Trump's election. Now, that's a lot. And former white supremacist Chuck Leek, who now works to combat this rise of white supremacy, says, the white supremacist movement is far more active in the last 6 months than I have seen it in 10 or 12 years. Now, look, they already got super active under Obama. They've been dormant before, and they still existed. But under Obama, they rose to new levels because they had, something they really, really motivated them to fight back. And then Barack Obama made a terrible mistake. There was a report that was prepared under George W. Bush that explained that right-wing extremism was on the rise, and that was leading up to the election and even before that, right? So it had been dormant for a while, started to rise at the end of Bush, and then really takes off under Obama. But the report was prepared under Bush. Obama releases it, and the right wing gets really mad. They're like, "Oh, how dare you talk about right-wing extremism? This is a plot, a conspiracy against Rush Limbaugh and Fox News." And Obama, as usual, buckled under the pressure and decided to actually lower the funding of groups inside the government looking to fight against right-wing extremism and terrorism. Now, that's a terrible idea, but at least the group still existed until now. So, Donald Trump has reportedly frozen $10 million of grants destined to counter violent extremism in the U.S. More than 30 organizations were pegged by former President Barack Obama's office to receive funding, although the White House has since put the grants on hold pending review. You want to fight right-wing white extremism? That's Donald Trump's base. Why would he agree to that? He's going to cut all of your funding. Okay, the Trump administration was reportedly pushing to erase neo-Nazis and white supremacists from the U.S. government's counter-extremism program in February by moving it to focus exclusively on Islamist terrorism. Now, the reality is that right-wing terrorism in America kills far more people. There's far more attacks than Islamic extremism. Does that mean that we should only focus on right-wing extremism? Of course not. Any rational human being would say, hey, the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, etc., should look at all of the threats, whether they're coming from Muslims, left-wing groups, right-wing groups. Who cares? Our job is to keep people safe. But no. Under Obama, they got reduced. Under Trump, they're like, no. Don't even look at the right-wing extremists. Don't look at neo-Nazis. Don't look to see if they might cause violent acts. Only focus on Muslims, even though we know that form of extremism in the U.S. leads to a lot less attacks. Who cares about facts? Who cares about keeping people safe? Remember, he said he was a law and order guy? Doesn't care. All he cares about is his own political base and ideology, and if it's filled with neo-Nazis, well, then he's going to make sure that they get away with it. And again, that's not me. He's the one defunding them. So if you get mad about how he's helping neo-Nazis get away with things, don't get mad at me. Get mad at him. He's the one defunding those programs. All right, finally, the reclassification would remove its work combating far-right attacks and mass shootings, such as the massacre of black churchgoers in Charleston, which are rarely classified as terrorism by American authorities. So, mass shootings, I know. The right wing thinks, oh, that's awesome. It's going to lead to more gun sales. Unless, of course, it was one of your family members who got shot, then it's not that awesome. But it doesn't matter. We're not going to study that anymore, and we're not going to pursue it or track it. And right-wing terrorism, we won't even call it terrorism, and now we won't even investigate it. Given that that is a much larger problem in America, well, we're all a lot less safe under Donald Trump now. But the neo-Nazis and the white supremacists voting for Donald Trump must be ecstatic. I guess mission accomplished. All right, when we come back, speaking of those white supremacists, they're back literally with torches in the South. We'll show you that devastating story and a lot more when we return.
Can we eat in here?
The real legend in the room is Jesus Godoy doing stage managing here. The Steven Spielberg of Internet TV. Come here for a sec. Okay, we got to get you back on, man. And there he is, man. Chief Justice. What are you doing stage managing? Yeah.
Why are you here tonight? On the panel, dude.
So that's like Spielberg coming in on a movie and doing like Best Boy or Best Grip or what do they call those? There's like Grip and then there's Best Boy. There's a Best Boy, right? That is the most unfortunate name for any job ever. Hey, what do you do? I'm a Best Boy. All right, dude. Hey, listen, man. Whatever pays the bills. So I now kind of have this year and a half sense. What's your sense?
You mean how long is he going to be in office?
Yeah. And how does this end and all that?
Dude, there's no way of knowing. My biggest fear is it's not that he's a right-wing, fascist. Mm-hmm. It's the gross incompetence.
That's what I've been saying from day one.
The security team.
Yeah.
Is that it's an inability to understand how the world actually functions. And added to this is casual racism. Mm-hmm. Layered on top of ignorance because he's never read a book. So you have a president who's going through life with, whatever the 1950s racist mentality is that he got from his father that he probably never gave up, who thinks somehow we can fuck with China because they're Chinese.
And that Steve Bannon guy thinks he's so fucking clever, let me do this populist thing, and let me do that, and let me do this. But if you're racist, you're not that clever. I mean, you couldn't even figure out they were all the fucking same.
I'm
super excited because we have different levels of members. They pay $10 a month, but there are some members that pay a little more. Executive producers, for instance. My favorite thing about executive producers is that we have quarterly calls with them. I love that I'm getting a little transparency and I'm knowing what you guys like and dislike, ideas on how to improve the show, topics that maybe we haven't heard of yet and you really want us to cover. We have so much respect for you because of the fact that you keep us independent and allow us to be uncensored, unfiltered, without worrying about corporate sponsors breathing down our necks and telling us what we can and can't say. So if you want to be a member, obviously no pressure. You can go ahead and join by going to tytnetwork.com/join. I'm going to ask some uncomfortable questions. The first topic that I said that we would discuss a little more is masturbation.
And then I was swimming in a hazelnut river.
Are you sure you're not doing mushrooms? Oh my god, I can achieve an orgasm by myself.
Fuck that, I am going to talk about it, because there should be no shame. I think a lot about that, because I love life.
That openness led to amazing.
And I keep saying to everybody, oh, I got to go call my wife. I figured that was a good excuse, and people can't say, hey, don't call your wife.
I'm going to release bliss.
It's so weird, because at that moment I felt this, and it smelled like lavender.
At the end, you get to go check. Nice job. If you're a member of the Young Turks, you too will rock the world. Back at the Young Turks, Jake Huber, Anna Crisper with you. You know, Anna, you were on during the Air America days, which was when we were on XM.
That's right.
Were you ever on Sirius?
I think I was. Well, back then, the content I produced was entertainment and gossipy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe Sirius was really into that, so maybe I would come in and comment on some political stories during your hour, but I don't think that I was part of the Sirius situation.
No, we did a lot of goofy stuff on Sirius, trust me.
Yeah.
Believe me. Okay, so there's some old school folks who used to listen to us back then. First of all, bless your heart. You might remember Jill Pike, and she's now in Washington, D.C., not with us anymore, but Ben Mankiewicz is still here, Michael Schur is still here, Wes Clark is still here, and you'll see them and hear them on future shows. Okay, so let me give you some quotes from the audience here. Hashtag TYT Live to talk to us throughout the show. Liquid Beef says, I'm sure if Trump destroys these tapes, his followers will be just as critical of Trump as they were of Hillary destroying emails. Wait for it. But don't hold your breath. Okay, Old Turk says, what's up with these idiot presidents recording their crimes? Here, brother, but thank God that they're that stupid. And Taylor says Trump is over, just a matter of time until the circus ends. We actually have a poll on that, too. tytnetwork.com/Trump. Is Trump done? That's what we're asking on that poll for you guys. Our members of the day are Mike Maloney and Basil Peterson, and our members support the show and make it happen. That's tytnetwork.com/join. Today in the post game, and that's for members only, I'm going to do one of my pet peeves, Callista Gingrich. Okay, Newt Gingrich's wife.
I love this topic, just because Cenk is so unfair, and I'm going to disagree with him, which is strange considering the stories about Newt Gingrich and Callista.
Yeah, I'm going to be wildly unfair to Newt Gingrich in the postgame. I know what you're thinking. Can't wait. tytnetwork.com/join to get the post games.
Yep.
And the whole 2-hour show ad free. All right, what's next, Anna?
All right. More than 150 countries have been hit with ransomware. This is essentially malware that encrypts data on an individual's or a company's computer system, which they will not be able to get any access of unless they pay a certain amount to these hackers. Now, the malware known as WannaCry paralyzed computers running factories, banks, government agencies, and transport systems, hitting 200,000 victims in more than 150 countries. Among those hit were Russia's Interior Ministry and companies including Spain's Telefonica and FedEx Corp in the United States. The virus took control of users' files and demanded $300 payments to restore access. I should also note that if the individuals impacted by this didn't pay the $300 within a certain amount of time, they would double the ransom amount. And then later, if they didn't pay, they would threaten these individuals by saying they would erase the data completely. So more than 200,000 computers have been affected so far, and authorities and politicians in various countries are expecting the malware, or I should say ransomware, to evolve and continue to impact even more computers. BBC analysis of 3 accounts linked to the ransom demand suggests about 38,000 had been paid by Monday morning.
You know, that's actually not that much, and as I look at this, I'm a little more worried. Now, why is that? They were expecting a bigger hit on Monday than they got over the weekend. They didn't get that, and it almost, to me, as I read through all the stories explaining it, felt like a trial run. So let's see what we can do. Now, if they were only got $38,000 so far, and they were sophisticated enough to steal stuff from the NSA and unleash it on the whole world, China, Russia, Indonesia, the U.S., UK, etc. And again, they'll get a little bit more by the end, but that's not a big hit, right?
Has the NSA ever achieved anything worth it? Other than spying indiscriminately on Americans and not being smart enough to protect their own strategies from hackers who have now used their strategies against not only the American people, but 150 other countries.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm reading a history of the CIA, and one of the biggest, their top counterintelligence guy, whose job was to catch communists, in a span of over 20, 25 years, never caught anyone. He wrote a lot of people out of town, and they were all false accusations, so destroyed the careers of good Americans. And it turns out the top Russian spy was his best friend. So that's usually their track record, right? So now, in this case, both the CIA and the NSA have top secret stuff that they have figured out, especially, but let's focus on the NSA portion here, because that's what's in the news today, about the vulnerabilities of Microsoft Windows. So now Microsoft says, hey, schmucks, tell us so we can fix it so that the whole world is not exposed to these kind of dangers, right? And then NSA goes, no, I want to keep it because I might want to use it against my enemies. But I'm going to keep it on a computer, which I can't protect. Oops, right. They hacked into it and got it and now have unleashed it throughout the world. And it looks like they just did a trial balloon. Wait till they can do the real thing. Oh, for Christ's sake. I mean, look, I'm sorry, Anna, one more thing. But to give you a sense of scope, like hospitals, schools, right? As we talked about here. But like gas stations, malls, power plants. So if you actually, they could send messages to the whole world. They could shut down nuclear power plants. God knows what happens when that happens. Let alone all the information they've already taken from hospitals. And if they delete them, then there goes your files, etc. It could be untold, historic, epic damage if this virus goes global and hits all the computers.
I mean, this virus has gone global. It's just what the hackers have used the virus for, which is to collect relatively small sums of money, to be fair. Like, you're right. I mean, you would think that they would ask for more than $300 or they're not asking for $300, they're asking for 300 in Bitcoin. $300 worth of Bitcoin. So I think what's also so interesting about this is, yes, schools, hospitals, small businesses and even large businesses have been impacted by this. But also, keep in mind, according to BBC Technology, in Japan, both Nissan and Hitachi reported some units had been affected. I mean, think about all the people who are going to suffer from not being able to purchase their personal massage devices as a result of this. We need to do something immediately. Okay, I'm joking around, obviously, but you know what I mean.
So the Chinese industry's been hit, and even the Russians were hit. Their interior ministry was hit. Now, no one knows who did it. But if you were going to do all these hits, you would certainly hit yourself a little bit as well to throw people off the track. I'm not putting it on the Russians. I have no idea who did it, okay? But don't worry, NSA is on top of it. And like Anna said, have you ever done anything positive? You've spied on all Americans, and what do we have to show for it? If they actually stopped terrorist attacks, you know how much they would brag about it?
Yeah.
Donald Trump, you know how quickly he'd hold a press conference? I stopped an attack! I'm the best! I'm the greatest! Trump, tremendous! Believe me! We spied in on all of you and we stopped this attack. No such thing, right?
Right.
I'm not saying they've never done anything effective, but they've unleashed this plague in the world. And do you have any confidence they're going to catch the guys who did it? So far, they haven't.
And here's one other thing I wanted to make sure everyone knew about. So there is a way to protect yourself, and that way is to ensure that you're updating the software on your computer. In fact, 2 months ago, Microsoft realized that there was this vulnerability because of what was leaked regarding the NSA, and so they created a software update to protect individuals. Now, for you or for me, it's actually relatively easy to just update the software. But when it comes to a large company or when it comes to a hospital, that's actually a very complicated and complex thing to do because you need the computers up and running, right? And so it's also costly. So a lot of these hospitals were unable to do it. And unfortunately, they were victimized as a result of this ransomware. But
somebody made a great point, Anna, about that. They said, Microsoft requires you to pay a lot of money to update your systems. Mm-hmm. That's almost a ransom in and of itself.
Yeah, if you're a hospital or a large company, yes.
Yeah, I mean, wait. It's your product. If it's vulnerable, why am I paying to update it? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I either have to pay a ransom to Microsoft or I got to pay a ransom to the guys who hijacked my data. And where's the NSA? If it was their fault that they got the information at all, why aren't they paying? But always privatize the gain, socialize the costs. So this cost is on all of us. Brilliant work, NSA. Brilliant.
All right, moving on to some other news. The city council in Charlottesville, Virginia, had voted to sell some Confederate statues in the area. Now, this was something the city council agreed on. However, a judge had ruled that there should be a temporary injunction, 6-month injunction, while he reviews this case. Now, of course, when it comes to anything involving the Confederates, you're going to have some white nationalists get involved and voice their concerns. Case in point, Richard Spencer. So over the weekend, there was a gathering at the Charlottesville Lee Park just after 9 p.m. Saturday, and the individuals there were chanting, "You will not replace us, Russia is our friend," and "blood and soil." So those were their chants, and they were trying to make a statement about how these statues should not be taken down, they should be preserved, and I was going to ignore this story until I realized there's a big point to take away from it. All the people who keep making arguments that the Confederate flag or these Confederate statues have nothing to do with race. Why is Richard Spencer getting involved? Why does he feel so passionately about this to the point where he mobilizes about 150 people, by the way, bearing torches in the middle of the night just so they can protest in support of these statues?
Well, it's an obvious reference to the Klan, right? So this is the new, theoretically sophisticated version of the Klan, and they're proud of it, and they say you will not erase us, meaning white supremacists from history. So the Confederacy, the whole point was white supremacy. They said, no, states' rights. States' rights to do what? To own property. What kind of property? Slaves. Okay, I got it. White supremacy. Okay? And so you want to replace us, and by the way, Trump, since he did so friendly with the Russians, all of a sudden the right wing who hated the Russians, because they're thoughtless idiots, their dear leader tells them, now you love Russia, and they go out there and chant, Russia is our friend. Because they have no minds of their own. This is what pathetic, stupid, authoritarian followers do. What bunch of beta males go out there, oh, Trump made money from the Russians, Russia is our friend, Russia is our friend.
What a weird chant, especially given the event that they're protesting at, right? Anyway, but you're right. They're simple-minded. They don't think for themselves. They're like sheep, and they have their little white supremacist leader telling them, "Hey, gather here, bearing torches," right? And by the way, We have some pictures that compare
we'll put it out
this
there.
gathering to some events that we experienced in history, in American history. So let's take a quick look at that.
In case it wasn't absolutely clear to you guys from the obvious picture of them holding the torches, not flashlights, not candles, torches, okay?
Tiki lights to be.
That's the new Bush of the Klan is tiki torches. Anyway, now let's take a comparison side by side. The pictures are nearly identical. Now, they say part of the reason they did it was an ode to the dead, okay? Probably the next one they'll have white sheets on because an ode to the dead, you want to look like a ghost. That's why we put the white sheets on, brother. Everybody knows what the torches are for. Okay, now look, for the people who don't want the statues removed, there is a range of those folks. I was at a law firm where there was someone from the South, from Virginia, British, just like here in Charlottesville, Virginia, an old Southern gentleman, and he would take the people that worked for him and toast Robert E. Lee's birthday every birthday, take you out for drinks and toast. Now, me being the guy that I am, as soon as he toasted for Robert E. Lee, I said, and for Grant too, okay? And I got a lot of looks like, oh, what are you doing? Are you crazy? We're toasting Lee. Don't toast Grant. He's going to be pissed. Okay. Nonetheless, I'm going to be generous and say that old school gentleman didn't think it through that much. I'm being way, way too generous here. Okay.
Who the hell toasts to Robert Lee?
Okay.
Who does it?
But in the
I
South,
don't get. Yeah, the South is a weird place.
I
don't understand it. Maybe that's me in my elite LA bubble, right? You guys lost. You lost. Let it go. You lost, and it was over slavery, okay? The Confederates fought to keep slavery intact. They wanted to enslave human beings, okay? Not only is that wrong, you lost. What are you you're toasting that guy? Really?
Yeah. So, look, I know that it's become part of this, the heritage culture, whatever, to some degree of the South, but just because something is in the past doesn't make it a good thing by definition. Slavery in the past, let's keep it in the past. Let's not continue to celebrate that heritage, right? And so, and by the way, if you disagree, and I know I've been to the South a million times, there's all these bumper stickers about like, oh, liberals don't know anything.
Is because there was a fight among the protesters, and so cops had to clear the scene. I mean, they're such clowns. They can't even get along with one another. They're so hateful that the one thing that unifies them doesn't even work. It divides them within their own group.
Well, and counter-protesters had also come too, but within them, they get one of the things that divides them is, should we also hate the Jews?
Right.
Okay, it's one of my favorite things. They had a deplorable ball among the balls to celebrate Donald Trump during the inauguration, and they got into a huge fight about whether to hate everyone but the Jews or whether to also hate the Jews.
Right.
And so maybe that's what, but if they all burn themselves, if they get into a fight like that, I know.
It's hilarious.
But overall, this movement is not funny, okay? Because what has happened under Trump was something that was long dead and buried, has risen its ugly, ugly head again. And so if we don't call it out for what it is, and look to fight against it, they're going to get further emboldened, and it's going to become normal again. And we can't have Klan rallies become normal again. Remember, the Klan was the biggest terrorist group in American history. They terrorized other American citizens. They lynched them. They murdered them. And their whole point was to sow terror throughout that population to make sure they never ask for their rights. It is the definition of terrorism. So if these guys...
Republicans in North Carolina have done to punish Democrats in their districts.
Now, you guys are going to think, especially my early behind-the-scenes footage, like, I already went and looked at the comments in the member section. He goes, oh, he's high, he's drunk. I swear to you I'm not. Well, I just tell you if I am.
Yeah.
Right? And so I get goofy in the behind-the-scenes stuff.
What's the need for the butter with this pretzel? This is already super fattening it up. You don't need to put butter on this thing. Why'd they make me do it, Vince? Why'd they make me do it? I'm just saying that this is known as the rear end guy. There's no way that every person he knows doesn't call him the rear end guy. I want you guys to see if you could see the lightning bugs. Whoa. Light them up. Light them up. Is it true, Ritzy? I will now watch it later. Mitzi, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat. Imagine him, isn't it? Hey, Kiki Cat. Kiki Cat. Alright, this is Kiki Cat signing out.
Hey, Jen, what's up?
Aaron, I forgot my email password. What is it?
EASSWORD.
A progressive future requires a different kind of financial industry. I'm Joe Sandberg, a co-founder of Aspiration.com, online financial firm you can fall in love with. The American financial industry came to serve itself and profit. I believe in a different path for business. Business should be about serving people, and that profit is a byproduct of serving people well. Aspiration.com is about our customers and our movement. We use what we call pay what's fair. You, as the customer, have the power to choose your fee. We trust you that if we do a good job for you, you'll choose to pay us. What percent of fees that you choose to pay, we give to charity. Many of you are passionate about the environment and reversing the effects of climate change, but many of you also may be banking at a big institution that funds things like Dakota Access. It made clear what's inherently broken about Wells Fargo and so much of the financial industry. These organizations are obsessed not with serving people, but with serving themselves and their profit. You can stop DOPL by taking your money out of banks that fund DOPL and put your money into financial institutions like Aspiration.com. You don't have to sacrifice your values to do well financially. And that's why our motto at Aspiration is do well, do good. But we have a popular fossil fuel free, firearm free, private prison free, sustainable investing fund at Aspiration called the Redwood Fund. And the minimum is just $100. The power and future is yours to determine. The choices you make with your money matter. And that's why we built Aspiration, because there's a different, better way to deliver both great banking and investing services that meet your needs and also match your values. Young Turks. We're just talking about the last episode of Old School. That's for members as well. And how we discovered that the LGBTQ community also has an acronym called Quilt Bag. So if you want to find out what that is, become a member, tytnetwork.com/join, and listen to last week's Old School. All right, today's post game, we're going to discuss Newt Gingrich and his wife, and who's a top and who's a bottom.
It would be a very inappropriate post-game show. I can already
tytnetwork.com/join. Okay, the man has no name writes in on #TYT Live. This ransom story is kind of terrifying. Just the beginning of stuff like this going down. Global issue. Agreed. Dylan C. Diggle says, why can't all these Confederate monuments just be moved to a Civil War museum? Yeah, you want to celebrate your heritage? Go to the museum, right? You want to despise that heritage? Go to the museum. Way. Marissa N. says, watching TYT Live with Grandma, she's heartbroken to see the KKK back without masks, meaning proud to show their faces. Racism real. Marissa, that's a great point. At least the Klan hid their faces. These guys don't even do that.
I remember one of the stories that we did back in the day was about Dr. Laura and how she had a black caller call in and complain about how her white in-laws, they made her feel like she was discriminated against. And Dr. Laura kept referring to her as the N-word. And then she got into a lot of trouble over that. And her big defense was, we elected a black guy. We're over racism. Right? At that time, Obama was the president. Yeah. And it's just, I wonder what goes through her mind when she sees people like Richard Spencer mouthing off and doing these protests.
Yeah, well, Trump supporters don't have a mind. They're authoritarian by nature, and they will always follow the alpha male. They are natural-born cucks. So they'll make an excuse for it. I'm sure I'd be shocked if Dr. Laura didn't vote for Trump, and I'd be shocked if she wasn't as submissive to him. And so she'll probably just, I mean, they were just, it was an ode to the dead. That's why they brought torches like the Klan and rallied around a Civil War Confederate statue. Because, what do you mean racism? You guys are so sensitive.
All right, let's move on. Are we ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it.
An official with the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, of course these are immigration officials, showed up to Public School 58 in Queens looking to apprehend a fourth grader. But thanks to a policy that was implemented by Bill de Blasio, he was unable to apprehend this child. Now, de Blasio issued a directive to the NYPD to not allow immigration and customs enforcement agents onto school grounds unless they had a valid warrant. In this case, the official did not have a valid warrant and as a result was not allowed to enter the school grounds and communicate with the fourth grader. Now, what's amazing to me is, really? You're going to apprehend a fourth grader? I mean, I thought the Trump administration was interested in going after and deporting these violent, dangerous criminals. I didn't know that fourth graders are violent and dangerous.
Well, I mean, do you know that he's not a bad hombre, Anna? So what I'm amused by is the Trump supporters who are surprised. So, of course, now the famous story in Indiana of the family where the wife voted for Donald Trump and all the family members and all the friends voted for Trump. Not all of them, but a great majority of them. And it turns out her husband was undocumented. But they're like, but he was a good hombre. And he got deported anyway.
They literally said that. That was a quote, verbatim. He was a good hombre.
So that good hombre right now is in the middle of Mexico. Gone. Removed. Okay? And if you're a fourth grader, hey, are you Latino and undocumented? That's it. I'm not having a conversation about it. They say, because the Trump administration then turns around and says, if you're undocumented, by definition, you are illegal and we can remove you. So if it wasn't clear enough, you think they won't go after babies? No, a fourth grader. What could a fourth grader possibly done?
I mean, those 9-year-olds are very dangerous.
Yeah. So if you think they're not coming for you, you're wrong. They are.
By the way, and that's... Doing these home raids is one thing, okay? Going to a child's school, think about how traumatic that is, especially for an elementary school student. How traumatic it is for a federal agent, and again, this is not a federal agent with ICE, this is, an immigration official who essentially does the same thing, but nonetheless, showing up and apprehending you, or even pulling you away and questioning you in front of all your classmates. How incredibly intimidating and scary is that for a child?
Yeah, they're monsters. And so this is going to happen more and more. Now, funny enough, though, there was a separate article today in the news about how Donald Trump has talked to the giant farming companies, and he promised them in a meeting that they called, quote, very productive, that he actually will not go after their workers. Now, wait a minute, wasn't that this? I thought this whole thing was about that. Like, hey, the nativists that supported Donald Trump thought, well, my wages are low because of all the damn immigrants taking my jobs. So Trump's going to kick those people out. It turns out, no, since they affect big business, which are his donors, those are the only ones he's not going after. So the thing that you actually wanted addressed, he's making sure he doesn't address it.
That's right.
Because they have given him political donations. And instead, they're rounding up fourth graders and people running perfectly good businesses in the middle of Indiana who've been reporting to the authorities all throughout. Who cares? Kick them out. They didn't give me a political donation. The whole point of this was to rebuild the swamp.
It's unbelievable. All right, let's go on to North Carolina. The North Carolina Senate has been voting and negotiating on a budget, and very recently they voted in favor of a budget that actually strips funding away from schools and programs in specifically Democratic districts. Now, they did this as a punitive measure. Let me give you the details. The Senate had rejected 5 amendments from Democrats to fund their spending priorities, but each time one proposal was shot down, another one was filled. Was filed. Now, Senate Rules Chairman Bill Rabin abruptly called for a recess, stopping the proceedings for nearly 2 hours. GOP leaders headed to a conference room with legislative budget staff, while Democrats, some surprised by the lengthy delay, passed the time with an impromptu dance party in the hall. Okay, Democrats in North Carolina are having fun. I love it. But here's the issue. They need to read legislation before they vote on it. They need to read budget proposals before they vote on it. And unfortunately, in this case, they didn't. When Republicans came back, they said, look, we know that you guys want funding for opioid addiction. Opioid addiction is a problem in North Carolina. So as a result, we will give you the funding for that. But what they didn't tell Democrats was that in order to pay for that, they would have to strip, or they would strip, funding for public education and other programs within their districts, okay? So it strips $316,000 from nearly 2 college high schools in Northampton and Washington counties, and it specifically bans state funding from supporting a summer science, math, and technology program called Eastern North Carolina STEM, okay? 7 counties represented by Smith is a Democratic representative there, and fellow Democratic Senator Angela Bryant were removed. Instead, the program will only apply to several counties represented by Republican senators.
So when Bush got elected, he said, look, I'm going to be everybody's president. And that's something that all these guys who come in the beginning, and same thing for Obama. And then they would say to Obama over and over again, you've got to reach out to Republicans because you're not just the president of Democrats, you're the president of the whole country. You have to make sure to represent Republicans as well. Okay, so that's a standard thing that you used to hear on both sides. Mm-hmm. Now, the Republicans have dropped all pretenses. So in North Carolina, they're like, no, if you are a citizen of North Carolina, but you live in a district that's represented by a Democrat, we're going to hurt you.
We're going to hurt you. Yeah, we're going to punish you because your representatives had the audacity to fight to fund help toward those who are suffering from an opioid epidemic, right?
Yeah, so that's the insult to injury. They're like, look, we don't actually care about any of the citizens of North Carolina. So if there's an opioid problem, that's their problem, not my problem. And if they're Republicans, if it affects their family, then they'll come and go, nobody knew that opioid was a real problem. In terms of, but now I'm affected, oh my God, let's fund it. It's a huge issue. That's what they do time and time again. But for now, they're like, no. I don't care about the citizens of North Carolina. I don't care if they get treatment. They don't get treatment. I don't care how bad the epidemic is. I don't care. Now, the problem with the Democrats is they do care. So I'm going to hold the citizens of North Carolina hostage. Mm-hmm. And until the Democrats pay the ransom, which is I get to strip your education funding, I'm not going to give you the help you need.
So here's the issue, though. Look, I agree that Democrats, on average, tend to concede very easily with Republicans and what their demands are. However, in this case, and this is an issue that we see not just in North Carolina, but on a national level, the Democratic lawmakers did not read the budget proposal. They just did it. By the time the Republicans came back from that recess, that 2-hour-long recess, it was 3 a.m. And so they just, took whatever Republicans said at face value without reading the terms of this agreement or this proposal and voted yes. And that's the part that drives me crazy. Look, I've gotten into debates with several people, on panels on this show regarding that issue, right? Oh, well, these lawmakers are busy or they have too much on their plates. They're too busy fundraising, whatever garbage they're getting involved in, right? I don't care. You are voting on the future of the individuals that you were voted to represent. You need to read what you're voting for. Okay.
Well, the Democrats in North Carolina are particularly weak and pathetic. So you had a Democrat win the governorship, and then they stripped him of most of his powers, and he just stood there and took it. He did a press conference where he was like, well, I understand why they did it, and, we'll have to negotiate. No, you're supposed to come out roaring and say, they just robbed you. You elected me. All of the citizens of North Carolina just elected me. Not a long time ago, you just voted. And then they basically took your vote away. They robbed you of your vote by stripping me of really important powers. But they didn't. They turned to the Republicans and said, thank you, sir. May I have another?
Right.
And so, you know what they got? They got another. So then now the Republicans did it to him again. And they're like, oh, golly gee, it's late in the day, and we didn't want to read it. God, stand up, will you? For Christ's sake, stand up and fight back. If you had strong Democrats in North Carolina, they would pummel these Republicans. Look, think about how monstrous it is. Well, I'm for hardball, right? But I would, if I'm in a state legislature, I would never vote to take away education money from Republican districts. Because it's not those kids' fault.
Right.
I mean, they've had it bad enough growing up with Republican parents. Okay? I'm not going to take away their education money because I want them to get educated. I want them to be better. I want them to have opportunity. I want them to have the American dream. The Republicans go, I don't care about your kids. And what are you doing, Democrats in North Carolina? For God's sake, stand up and fight back. If you fought back, they already voted for a Democratic governor in North Carolina. They voted for Obama. It's not like it's not doable. It's eminently doable if you would just, goddamn it, fight back.
Well, as Senator Erica Smith Ingram says, nobody knew what they were voting on. It happened so quickly. That's not an excuse. Sorry.
All right, next story.
All right.
So how we doing?
Not funny.
A television corporation known as Sinclair is planning on acquiring Tribune Media and becoming another huge media conglomerate. Now, there are some ramifications to this, especially when you consider the fact that they force the networks that they work with
we're hearing Blaine
to
Gabbert
run
getting a
these
contract.
so-called must-run ads, and they're produced by Sinclair, and they are very obviously right-leaning. Now, during the election campaign last year, it sent out a package that suggested, in part, that voters should not support Hillary Clinton because the Democratic Party was historically pro-slavery. Now, I know that there are a lot of Democrats who did not like Hillary, who didn't want to vote for Hillary, but they felt that way due to, I would argue, justifiable reasons. The Democratic Party being historically in favor of slavery is not one of the reasons why people didn't want to vote in favor of Hillary.
That's a classic propaganda lie that people who are right-wing put out there
if we're going to
for the purpose of deceiving you. So they're talking about ancient history when the parties were reversed, when Democrats were largely the conservative party and the Republicans were the liberal party under Abraham Lincoln. That's why Abraham Lincoln fought against the Confederacy and their slaves. What they don't tell you is that in 1964, because of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, the parties in essence switched. And the Republicans did what is called the Southern Strategy to make sure they can get racist voters in the South to vote for the Republican Party. They said, look at this Democratic Party. Lyndon Johnson that passed the Civil Rights Act to give black people the same rights as white people. Outrageous. We're now the racist party. Okay? That's what the Republicans did under Richard Nixon. So when Sinclair runs those ads, they say, not only are we Republican right-wingers, but we are intending to deceive you by pretending that the Democrats of today are in favor of slavery and the Republicans are against it, when in reality, the Republicans just stripped away that same protections of the Civil Rights Act. Today, the right-wing Supreme Court did, and the Republicans celebrated it. They're the racist party.
Right.
They know it, and they know it's not popular, so they try to smear the other party.
That's right.
And now they're going to have more TV stations to do that with.
They are. And that's one of the biggest issues with conglomerates, right? Because if you have one corporation or just a handful of corporations taking complete control of the content that you see either in local news or news on a national level, you're going to have a problem, right? You're going to have a certain slant, a certain political bias, and that's what we're experiencing right now. So let me give you more details. It wasn't just the Hillary ad that they were playing. Apparently, since November of 2015, Sinclair has ordered its stations to run a daily segment called that has to do with terrorism. It's from the Terrorism Alert Desk, which updates on terrorism-related news around the world. So, of course, classic fear-mongering. Now, they're proposing an acquisition of Tribune Media, which would add 42 stations to Sinclair's 173. So its stations would reach more than 70% of the nation's households, including of the largest markets. Okay, so that would include New York, Los Angeles. Those are the biggest markets right now. Also, the journalist at Como, that is a news station in Seattle, described small acts of rebellion, like airing the segments at times of low viewership or immediately before or after commercial breaks, so they blend in with paid spots. They all spoke on condition of anonymity, citing fear of reprisal from the company. So they're concerned that they're going to face some retaliation if they don't run these must-run ads that they don't agree with because they're very obviously politically biased. To be fair to Como News, they're not interested in reporting news from political bias, either from the left or the right. And so the journalists that work there are concerned about their reputation, their credibility, if these types of ads run on their network, or their station, I should say.
Now, could you imagine if a media organization put out ads saying, themselves putting out ads saying Republicans are the pro-slavery party? What would happen? Liberal media bias! We knew it! How dare they! We should shut them down! This problem with the liberal media. Instead, they reverse the truth, and they say the Democrats are the pro-slavery party, and everybody's like, oh, that's fine. Let's let them buy more stations.
They do rant against the liberal media. In fact, here is the head of Sinclair Broadcast Group talking about fake media. This is one of the must-run ads.
Hi, I'm Scott Livingston, Vice President of News for this television station. We know our greatest responsibility is serving our local communities. I'm extremely proud of the journalism that this station produces. But I'm sure you know about the troubling trend of irresponsible and one-sided news stories plaguing our country. The sharing of bias and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, national media outlets are publishing these fake news stories without fact-checking. Unfortunately, some members of the national media are using their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think.
If that isn't projection, I don't know what is.
If George Orwell saw that, he'd scream, told you they'd be doing that. As they do propaganda over and over again on Sinclair, they do another piece of propaganda to tell you the rest of the media is biased. If it wasn't so haunting and they didn't control such a large portion of our media in America, it would be hilarious.
You know, last Friday, Newt Gingrich was speaking to Sean Hannity on Fox News, and they were discussing fake news. And Gingrich suggested that maybe it makes sense to have, he didn't use this word, but this is what he implied, state-sponsored media, right? And Hannity's like, yeah, that's a great idea. It's a great idea. It's incredible how we're just completely moving back as a country. We are regressing as a country. How can you not be in favor of our First Amendment rights for free reporting? Right?
It's not so much.
I don't know. That's just the country that we're living in right now, and it's insane.
Okay, so for our serious audience, much love. Thank you for listening on this first day that we're back on Sirius XM. For everyone else who's watching live, we do have one more quick segment for you guys, so we'll be right back.
He can. I mean, now you gotta know who he is. Look, he's a dynamic player when he has parts around him. When he has to do it by himself, he can't carry a team. The average passing percentage in the National Football League is 63%. He's a 60% a passer. That's what he is. 85 touchdowns, 51 turnovers. That's his career. Okay, now when he was rolling with San Francisco, think about who he had. Had an outstanding defense, big time running game, and so they had an offense that was really they massaged to his skill set. You got to be able to do that with him now. He's not one of those guys going to sit in the pocket. He can 3-step, 5-step. He's not that kind of guy. You've got to move him around some, so you have to have flexibility in your offense if he's going to play for you.
Back on the Young Turks, let me read some tweets for you guys. Derek Martin says, arresting a kid is par for the course with this administration. Trump goes after fourth graders to prove no one is off limits. Art Murray says, let me sum up the Trump immigration policy. If you're brown, you're gone. It's not about crime or papers, it's racism. Molly McButta says, imagine now how my son might react if ICE was able to come and take him out of class. Without my permission, my own child. And if
it's just scary. It really is.
Yeah. And Joy says GOP is against education because an educated populace votes Democratic. One of the haunting things that I saw when I was in Charleston earlier this year, so we went to go to visit a plantation, and we were in the slave quarters, and we were reading some of the stuff that they had done in the past. And one of the things they explained was that they were not allowed to get an education. Mm-hmm. Now, if you thought that they were subhuman, which is what their claim was at the time, why would you care, right? You would assume that they're not capable of it anyway. They're not. Right. They're not as capable as you, right? They're not as smart as you. So why bother? Like, would you have to pass a law saying cows are not allowed to read and write? You wouldn't have to pass that law, right? You don't need that law,
right?
But they passed one to make sure whatever you do, don't let blacks get educated. Okay. And so this has been going on for a long, long time. Okay, we have one more story for you guys, and then this story is kind of fun, kind of creepy. It's got a poll, and then we'll do the postgame for you guys.
Okay. Trump is really creepy when it comes to his daughter, but it turns out that his lawyer is also extremely creepy when it comes to his own daughter. Case in point, recent tweet by Michael Cohen. Again, this is the lawyer for Donald Trump. He decides to tweet out a seductive, sexy picture of his own daughter and says, so proud of my Ivy League daughter. Brains and beauty, channeling Eddie Sedgwick on Instagram. Then he plugs her Instagram, whatever, who cares? What is going on? Why would you post that picture? Like, I think it's super sweet that you're proud of your daughter, but it's just a strange picture to post, especially like with the hosiery and the lacy black bra, and the seductive like pose. Like, my dad would be
mortified if he came across that photo, and he certainly would not share it.
My dad would say, "What is this?" Okay. Now look, guys, we're not trying to judge her. Bless her heart. She does what she does,
She looks
right?
beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that photo. The only thing that's questionable is that her dad shared it in a public forum.
No, that photo is lovely, and I'm sure many men have enjoyed that photo. But knowing that, I mean, when you think about your own daughter, why would you, what's wrong with these people? Okay, maybe, you know what, maybe we're not liberal enough. Maybe Michael Cohen is more enlightened than we are, and he's like, go ahead, guys, look at my daughter, and
Maybe you're right. I don't know. I'm...
You know, and if you like half-naked chicks, I got one for you. It's my daughter. You should check her out, okay? Like, of all the pictures on Instagram, he picked that one. You see what I'm saying? It's like he could have picked a different one, like, hey, look at how beautiful my daughter is. God bless, and a nice dress, whatever.
Aside from, the fact that it's her father and it feels creepy, I think that a photo like that takes away from what the main point that he's trying to make. He's trying to make a point about how she's an Ivy League student or Ivy League graduated. She's super smart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she also happens to be attractive. But being attractive should be the little side note. This photo just says, my daughter's a sex pot, my daughter's a sex pot. You know what I'm saying?
Nobody's getting Ivy League educated out of this picture.
That's right. Yes, that's the point. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay,
that was
God bless your heart.
Way better than I said it.
You could have sent that message in 1,000 different ways. Okay, but I'm sure Twitter just let him off the hook, right?
Oh, totally. Let me give you an example of how they let him off the hook. So, a bunch of people responded to that tweet. Let me give you a taste. Mimi says, the last time my dad posted a pic of me in lingerie was never.
I already love that.
Yep. Amanda says, super duper creepy. Ew, man, what the fuck? And then someone shared this lovely gem of Donald Trump and his daughter. Which, by the way, that's a really cute, sweet picture until you hear how Donald Trump talks about his daughter.
Yeah, without context, that's a perfectly fine picture, right? But we know that they've taken many pictures like that together, and again, even with it, no problem. Except for the fact that Donald Trump has said on 3 different occasions that if Ivanka was not his daughter, he would be interested in dating her. Okay?
Yeah.
So when you put that context in, that picture takes a whole different connotation, and then his lawyer, bragging about his daughter in lingerie, takes another connotation.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. Anyway, so of course, Michael Cohen did read some of the responses he got from his tweet, or for his tweet, and his only response back to the insult or the criticism was jealous. Which is even weirder.
You're such a weirdo, dude.
In stores now, only.
I'm not jealous.
Do you think he's being blackballed by the NFL when we're hearing Blaine Gabbert getting a contract?
Well, I'll say this. I think that there are 2 separate and distinct things here that we have to talk about. Colin Kaepernick, whether you support him, whether you think that he made a mistake doing what he did last season, you cannot deny.
And you know, with Trump, he likes sycophants. Like, if you say, hey, Donnie, you're so right, Donnie. No good boy, Donnie boy. Of course, who doesn't want to sleep with their daughter, right, Donald? You know what I'm saying, right? Here, let me show you a nearly naked picture of my daughter.
There's a
right?
false
No, like, oh, that's my kind of guy.
Okay, well, he's better than Gabbert, and Gabbert got signed. For what, $1 million? I think we know that Colin Kaepernick wants significantly more money.
I would be mortified if my dad shared that photo. Right? If I had taken a photo like that, if my dad tweeted it,
beliefs, I believe there should be some evidence. And
Dad, what are you doing?
Like, what is the male equivalent, right? You know, my dad tweeting a picture of me in Speedos. Like, oh, I'm so proud of my Ivy League educated son.
I think it's much more likely that he's not getting signed, he's not getting interest, because he's making demands for that outstrip what
He wants a star. He wants real money.
There's God save us from these fools. Alright, we're out of time, guys, but we do have a wonderful post game for you guys. Costa and Newt Gingrich. What new posts are they getting apparently from Donald Trump? And who is top and who is bottom? TYTnetwork.com/join to hear that.
Into a team system. Coaches, for the most part, are control freaks.
Mm-hmm.